Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for...
We're gonna catch you on the flippity-flop. Unspun. What? Hot enough for you, flippity-flopper?
Flip and a flip to the flip-flop and a flip-flip. What the heck's going on?
Oh, what's that? You got a bell.
I do.
We get sound effects for the new show here for 180.
That's right. For 180. Hey. Okay, where do we start? Let's start with...
Yeah, we'll get to flip-flopping later.
We will. 8th and Arbutus, I think, is a huge story from this week for people who are watching the political drama continue to unfold in Vancouver City Hall. Apologies to those who want us to talk more about Surrey, but we're going to start with Vancouver here. The mixed social housing project, the 13-story building, 129 units, single-room units. George, walk us through the 81 meetings that it took to get here and the, 9 million amendments that were associated with this. What is this? Where are we?
Well, if I put it simply, and you get a lot of heat for this, and in fact, the head of BC Housing actually said this. Shane Ramsey said the word flip, or said the word not flip. That's stuck in my head. Said NIMBYs. He said that in his speech to the council, which of course created outrage. But is this an NIMBY thing? Is it something that's being built? It's social housing for core need people who are unhoused. This is people who have mental challenges, they have drug challenges, they have housing challenges. This is people that are at the most need. And a lot of these kind of buildings are downtown. There's smaller ones sort of sprinkled around the city, around the region, really. But it's very seldom that they build a large building like this. There's one that's has been approved in East Vancouver, and this was in the West Vancouver. And if you don't know Vancouver, the west side, east side, it sounds like a gang war we're going to have. But this is old news in some ways. They're always like, why doesn't the west side get more of these things? And there's one big one up on sort of Dunbar area that was built 20 years ago. It has some problems, but not many. So it's really just a social housing, and the neighbors were like, no, because it's near a school, it's this and that. It's
not just near a school; it's right across the street from a school. But I also agree with you that there's a NIMBY piece of this puzzle, or people that are really concerned that a 13-story building is going into an area that doesn't have a lot of 13-story buildings. Yeah. But it is right at the end of the. I'm trying to look at it from all sides here. The Broadway subway line will end.
You're such a good person.
Well, am I though?
Am I though? All sides. What a concept! What are you doing?
Oh God! Clearly, I'm never running for office, George. This just in. No. So I have some friends and people that I know who live within sort of the area of 8th and Arbutus. I mean, frankly, I kind of live in the area of 8th and Arbutus, and you know what? People need a place to live. People need a place to live. I would much rather have people housed than people setting up tents in doorways all the way down West Broadway. I mean, people have set up tents all the way down East Hastings to the point where Karen Fry, the fire chief, had ordered the tent city that was growing on East Hastings removed because the BPD said this is not our job anymore to sweep out people every day and their belongings if they're unattended. But people don't have a place to go with their belongings. Yeah. So, going to a shelter, why can't they just go to a shelter? People want to do cliche, lumped in, everybody's one thing. Every single person that's going to live at 8th and Arbutus is going to be a drug addicted mental health, case that's, extreme. Well, absolutely, there will be people with high need, extreme need involved in that. The hope is that there were lessons learned from the Marguerite Ford building on West 2nd Avenue. So let's talk about that. And the one you mentioned in East Van, I talked this through with Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young on radio. And she mentioned that the one that was built in East Van, that was Kingsway and...
Is it in Victoria? I forget. No,
I think it is Victoria.
Or King Edward, somewhere in there. It's like,
yeah. But it was done in conjunction with the community, right? There was a little bit more of, this is where people actually want to live, and there are
the First Nations, Aboriginal angle. I mean, that's great, but it's spin. That's spin to me. I heard
Is it?
her. I thought, come on. I mean, it's housing for people who need it most of all, and it's 100% affordable. It's really you in council, and we talked about this when you're filling in on CKNW, and I brought up three things. One is, first of all, when you're voting on these kinds of things, public input's important, but it's not the only thing you need to think about. It's one piece of the puzzle. So you need to
Right.
weigh the different aspects of what you're doing in your decision making for the city as a whole. And this whole argument about wards came up in this Twitter battle I'm in right now, that this wouldn't happen if we had wards. In fact, I think it would be worse, because then the people would only be thinking about their one neighborhood.
Their neighborhood instead of a party system. For those who don't understand the difference between your area votes or your party votes, because we've got more center right, fiscally conservative or further to the right parties than we do left, which is why repeatedly on UnSpun podcast, George, you come back to the fact you might not like Kennedy-Stewart, but he right now is sitting pretty for re-election because there's so many people splitting the vote on the center right side of the spectrum, right?
Yes, and so you have that whole issue of politics and spectrum. And in the case of this project, it's interesting. You got all these different people. There's a left-right agreement where NIMBYs come together on the whole spectrum. It's interesting. You have people who you would consider left-wing, and people who you consider right-wing, and they come together and they seem to be agreeing on not supporting this kind of housing, which to me is like, there's some interesting data that Francis Bula put out there a little while ago, and I had to resend it to me because I wanted to remember it. And one of the pieces of data was about criminal police calls and fire calls to the buildings in the city. And overwhelmingly, the housing, the social housing that's centralized the downtown east side, which there's a lot of it. I live downtown. We have a lot of social housing and this kind of in the neighborhood, a lot of them. And I'm saying, can we build them somewhere else as opposed to right along my street? So I'm kind of a NIMBY, but we have 18 social housing units within 2 blocks of where I live. 18. And these are large, 20, 30 story towers.
18
nobody complains.
Towers?
18 buildings within 2 blocks.
Wow. That's a significant stat, George.
Yeah. If you look at Seymour Street, it's almost all now social housing, right? And then there's some on Granville Street. So it's fine. We as a neighborhood, we don't have a problem with it. But I think we've given. Let's talk about some other places in the city. So there's that. But the fact that this criminal the calls to police and fire are multiple, like 5-6 times higher in these areas in the downtown east side than Seymour Street, and then as you move outside the city or outside the downtown core, even at the building you mentioned, the Marguerite Ford, it's still bad, but it's not even close to what you're seeing in downtown east. And then as you move further away, less and less calls. So it's an argument to that, in fact, build these homes, these places for people to live because they're homeless, around the city, around the region of the city. The goal of the BC Housing is to build, I think, 400 units in the next several years in Vancouver. We have 2,000 homeless people in Vancouver alone. We have,
at last count, there's probably way more. There's probably way more than
And I pointed this out to you, and this is another, that policy decisions made by the federal Liberals in the early 90s under Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin, very fiscally prudent party, but the ramifications of their decisions, which was to stop the housing program that existed up to that point from the late 60s until the early 90s, they stopped that. The exact number of units that have not been built since that housing program stopped is the exact number of housing units we need in Canada to deal with the people that are homeless. Is there not a correlation here?
There is.
A little bit. I mean, it wouldn't be 100%, but certainly would help. And then couple that with the deinstitutionalization by the provincial Liberals here in British Columbia. And at the same time, early 90s, they closed down all these institutions. Where did these people go? They went off. They didn't go anywhere. They went to the streets. So we have this problem.
Can I jump in there? Because I want to jump in there because it's very unpopular to speak about warehousing people and institutionalizing people and mistreatment within facilities. That's why facility became
over the cuckoo's nest syndrome.
Right?
Yeah.
But as somebody born and raised here, there was a visceral change when there was no place to go when you struggled so mightily with your mental health. Like there was a big shift right around that time because it was just closed. There was no, and now you can use this or this or this. There was nothing. It was just taking the spin out of it. is no, we shouldn't go back to facilities and institutions where people can do misdeeds to people with mental health struggles that are extreme. No. But I mean, in a time where we can't even really all get family doctors, how are we going to fix what's broken here? Like this ball of wax, and you and I literally, how many, we're 180 episodes into UnSpun podcast. And we have literally been speaking up. Thank you. Congratulations to you too, my friend. But we have literally spoken about this since the very first day. The pillars, the steps that need to be put into place before any of this can be resolved. We were talking about Oppenheimer, then we were talking about Strathcona, and then Crab Park was in there. Then now it's East Hastings. Now it's 8th and Arbutus, and why and how it can be expanded in a way that is healthy for the people that need the leg up. I agree with you. Like, we live in a city and housing should be a human right. People should have a place to go and a place to live. And maybe the people that have those 129 rooms, I will eat this if it's proven to be a horrible place that ruins the entire neighborhood. I will eat it then, but I don't feel that it will be, because I think there are lessons to be learned along the way. Maybe those 129 people will be incredibly grateful to have a place to call home and become a part of a community. And maybe they're welcomed into the community in ways that are beautiful. Maybe it might work. You know?
We have a really recent example in Vancouver, and actually this is happening across the region, which is the temporary modular housing, which is the same formula. It's really these are probably more they prioritize, I think, women who are homeless and other areas. So it's not these people who need daily service as far as staffing and mental health stuff and all that stuff that this building that they're talking about in Vancouver will have, because that's important. And the math for that is very specific from the provincial government. When you have people with mental health and drug addiction, you have to have a certain number of staff and all that stuff. But in the case of these modular housing buildings that have been built, I think we've had over 1,000 in Vancouver have been built. It's interesting to look at some of the data, which I've seen. Again, the ones where the problems are closer to the downtown east side, the downtown core, and the ones which are further out are having less problems. And when those came online in 2018, and people were outraged outside, like in Marpole, outside the smaller areas around the city, no, this is going to ruin our neighborhood. Well, it hasn't happened. It's fine. It's fine. But I mean, people get mad at me. My tweet that I did, it's going to be okay. People, how dare you say that? It's not going to be okay. But
you really do take it on the chin. At George Affleck, at George_Affleck on Twitter. I'm at Jody Vance on Twitter, at Jody with a Y, at Jody Vance on Twitter. And we do read all of our tweets. We don't have people do them for us and all that. And I really do appreciate your fearlessness when you come at some of these things in an arena like Twitter that's toxic anyway. But there are people who really do lean into what you talk about. And it's important that we don't just sit in silos and say, nope, I just think those homeless people are all a bunch of drug addicts who are blah, 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 right? They're human beings who need the support of their community. We are the community. If you don't want to live in a city that is growing the way Vancouver is growing, time to move to the country, people. Time to move,
I think, but there are ways to deal with this, even if neighborhood agreements, best behavior, it's provincial government run an organization, I just think the data doesn't prove it. Now, they're one of our big fans, George, I forgot his Twitter handle, but his fellow George out there who watches and listens to us every week, and he and I are going at it a little bit on Twitter today. He usually loves everything I say. People are quite surprised at my opinion on this. They think that I would be more supportive in the Colleen Hardwick world of
talk about Colleen Hardwick. We haven't gotten into that here, because how people voted within council, it was an 8-3 vote.
Yeah.
And we will get to other topics. Don't worry, we will. But specific to Colleen Hardwick, who is running for mayor, right? We got Ken Sim, John Cooper, Colleen Hardwick, obviously the incumbent in Kennedy-Stewart. We got Mark Marison.
There's a few other fringe.
There's a number of other, right? So there's, but 14, at the core, right? But Colleen, like, there are some people in Vancouver who will just vote for her because she's a woman. Like, it's time to put a woman in charge, right? Okay. There are. There
Yeah,
are.
totally, and it's a good point. I think that she's resonating to a very, very niche part of our city. But as I said earlier about the left wing, right wing, because she's
Yeah.
got Bill Thielman, who's a NDP lobbyist for years and communications person for people who, the left side of the spectrum, and he's one of her council candidates. So she's drawing upon the rage on all of the ends of the spectrum. Um, that's not inspiring to me. I don't want
I don't
anger.
want rage. No.
If we've seen that kind of leadership in America, I don't think it's particularly a good route to go. It's not solutions based, and I think it's deflating as a place to live. And I think the negativity of that kind of leadership would resonate across the city and everything that we do. And, staff, it'd just be a downer. Sorry, Colleen. I just don't like. I mean, she's got her issues, but they're all kind of negative. It's not about her personality, but if you're just going to talk about all what's wrong and blah, and you're not going to inspire me to be excited about your leadership and what you're going to do positive for the city. Now, I think actually all the leaders have a problem with this. I'm not getting a lot. It's still early, and I think look at Surrey. In fact, I think the Surrey leadership candidates for the mayor are actually more inspiring. They have more interesting ideas. They're talking about public transportation. They're talking about things that are big and
Crime.
city building, and not about city shrinking.
Crime.
Right? I mean, but not about it's terrible. It's like, here are my solutions.
What are we going to do about it? Indeed. And can we let's move to the crime piece of this.
By the way, just on that, building this building will solve a lot of problems when it comes to crime, because a lot of these people are doing petty crime across the city, and because they're desperate. They're desperate. So let's help them. Come on. Let's share our wealth as a society. Canada, help these people. What is wrong with us?
What is wrong with us, indeed? Because the crime piece is significant, and it's been a bit of a revolving door. We've been talking about that here on the podcast over and over and over again. Obviously, that's not a municipal situation as much as it is a provincial situation. David Eby being held to task on that topic now, as he is really likely the next premier of the province, and now the former attorney general, right? But he's been asked about it, and I mean, where to even begin? Because things have devolved so incredibly on so many levels. I mean, and not even just locally in Vancouver. Now we'll broaden out to around Metro Vancouver and into the Fraser Valley. What we saw in Langley this week with that shooting spree, my God.
Like the kind of stuff you see in America. Like, that is like, what? Random, what? This is what? I know, it tragic, and based on, obviously, this person, was targeting a kind of person on the street, whether they were that person or not, or if it, turns out that he was mistaken, and there's some, it's horrible. And obviously this person had mental health issues, but man, oh man, like, what is going on? And then the guy in Whistler's, they got the crime, the murders in Whistler.
Two young people, like early 20s, kids really, who gunned down two people at Whistler. Like,
oh, the ones who killed him.
The two. I mean, it's just, it's like,
continue.
I mean, on the heels of what we saw over on the island with those twin brothers that were actually triplets, the sister gets to survive and try and wonder what the hell happened. And we don't even have time to catch up on the complete story before there's another crazy thing that happens. Like a woman in her 50s, somebody my age, who's living below the poverty line, basically sitting on the downtown east side doing nothing, has some random 30-year-old white dude pour flammable liquid over her head and set her on fire. What is happening? What is happening?
And then
there's nobody stepping forward. Right. But then nobody really steps forward to say, here's what I'm doing about this, which takes us back to how we're in an election year. We're going to be provincially overwhelmed with that, as well as municipally. On your birthday, October 15th, 2022, by the way, is George Affleck's birthday. Don't forget. That's what you can do for George for his birthday.
My birthday gift to me, your birthday gift to me, is to vote.
And let's remind people in this moment, George, that you need not check every box on a ballot in order for your vote to count.
choose the best candidates, not all of the candidates.
I made that mistake and I voted for a couple of people who are currently on the park board that I really, 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 really wish I hadn't voted for.
Yeah.
Let's go to park board now because that's a big piece of this as well. The drum circle at Third Beach, your thoughts
Oh,
on that?
well, I mean, yeah, it turned into a bit of a rager, this party in the beach, and then got a little bit out of hand. The lifeguards down there got, there was a person in stress. Lifeguards saved her, I think it was a woman's life, but also there were some attacks on the lifeguards, I hear. Like it was just
Stood in the
horrible.
way. They were blocking the,
It's
trying
in
to
the way,
block the
and I
way of the
heard it got
lifeguards.
even
Yeah.
worse than that from some sources I have.
Oh, yeah.
And the lifeguards though are committed to doing their job, but the park board in their infinite was said, oh, let's just pull the lifeguards from that beach or from 7 p.m. Like, why not call the cops or tell the police? Where the hell were you with your little scooters that you drive around there? Like, what? This party was not like it started like out of nowhere. It must have been going on for hours. This is the kind of thing that gives alcohol on beaches a bad name. Like,
Or drugs. Or legal cannabis, whatever.
Yeah, but this
Yeah.
is deal with things like that. Police, maybe they're overwhelmed that night with other stuff, but I mean, it's a drum circle. They've been happening everywhere. They have invites. It's all public, and you know where they are. They don't just pop up out of nothing. They are literally organized events that don't follow the rules at all.
Right. But if you have a lemonade stand on a hot day, they will shut you down.
Yeah,
What is it about a drum circle that can't be shut down? Or a hot dog at the baseball game? Way to trigger me, George. Thanks, buddy. I mean, you're just winding me up and letting me go. So,
anyways, I just think that but the park board's response to that is like, oh, so park board. But don't worry, Ken Sim's going to solve all the problems. Oh, wait, I'm getting into a flippity flap.
can you explain this to me? I'm catching up
Okay,
on this.
I'm getting a lot of heat for this too, but I feel you got to call this stuff out. So Ken Sim, I think it was last fall, made a big announcement before he even had really even a party. I think that he was going to, the first thing his order of business as the next mayor would be to dismantle the park board, to just do away with the park board. Which, I said, well, it's not easy, but it's possible. The first thing they have to do is vote themselves. They have to make a motion as a park board to say, hello, provincial government, can you disband us, please? And once the provincial government gets that, they go through the administration, they disband it. They say, now you're a part of the city, like every other
it's a
city in
self-inflicted fall on a storm. Yeah, right.
So in Vancouver, we have a elected park board. Every other city in BC and actually in Canada has a department of parks and recreation that is part of the city, just like transportation or engineering, just like housing, whatever. But today he announces his park board slate and says, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to flip on that. I'm going to flop on that."
How did he explain it though?
This is his biggest thing, and frankly, I think it was actually, he blinked. I think, but I think it's as an idea, I think it could have really resonated given the incompetence that this park board continues to show. Yes,
it resonated with me. I'm like, really? Can he do it? And you're like, no.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he could have done it, but it would be complicated. And that's what his argument is. Well, I didn't think, okay, so you didn't think it through. You just made it up when you're in the fly, and now you flipped on it. I mean, in politics, sometimes you just got to stick with. Gregor Robertson was going to solve homelessness. Remember that? And he got elected 3 times.
What year was that?
2008. But he solved it by 2015, and he left office in 2018. After 3 victories, unanimous, like massive victories.
Because we believed him.
Yeah, there's issues you can literally take to the bank in politics, and I think Ken Sim was on to something. Not that I thought it was necessarily, it was cynical kind of approach to politics to do that, just like saying you're going to solve homelessness, and then he backs away from it. So people say, well, it shows how he's able to look at things and make a decision. No, he was afraid. He got afraid. That's what happened. He realized, oh man, he obviously got, people were telling him, you're crazy, don't do it. There's too many park board people that are, and they are a strong advocacy group, park board people in Vancouver. I could see how that might be intimidating, but come on. Okay, what's your other idea then? It's like, if you're going to announce not doing something that's huge, you better have something huge to replace it with.
Was there something in his, I haven't seen the announcement of his slate of park board nominees, I guess, candidates. Is there something within that is like remarkably different than the current commissioners around the table?
Well, they just said he's gonna. It's all about the about doing a better job at park
Okay.
board,
Which
which
would
is
hopefully wrap around becoming fiscally responsible and prioritizing things as park board commissioners might look out for the people who pay for the parks, taxpayer, and the people who use the park, the people of the province, parks, because it's not just
yeah.
the city who uses the city parks; it's the whole province that congregates, in the parks in Vancouver. We are the big municipality in this province, right? So it makes me,
Yeah.
I'm happy about Kids Pool reopening early because we put quite a stink up about that when they said, oh no, it's not
Yeah.
opening this year. We're like, excuse me, we can open the Coquihalla, but we can't fix Kids Pool in a year. Come
When does
on.
it open?
So they
This
fix
weekend?
that. It opens this Saturday. Limited numbers, George, because they don't have lifeguards.
Oh, and guess when it starts raining? Monday.
Monday.
Well done, park board. You did it. You did it.
Makes me a little crazy.
Whatever. I just
did you
think
see my post?
just to finish up the Ken Sim thing, though. I
Okay,
think
sure.
while he might get away with it, if his people who are competing against him, there's a guy called Adrian Dix who flip flopped on something, and the Liberals took that all the way to the bank. They used that weather vane thing that was just golden. And so if the people up against Ken Sim, including Kennedy-Stewart, if he sees Ken Sim getting close to put him out, this is golden. I mean, you want a mayor who's going to flippity flop. Nope.
I'm already exhausted, but it's going to be here before you know it. Like the election is not that far off, right? As it feels like we've been talking about it for, well, you
and I talk about it all the time.
August, September, October. We are obsessed. I'm obsessed with, right? And I think I've mentioned the park board every single time because it is so frustrating that parks aren't taken care of.
When we talked about the province and a guy in the legislature, and
that's right. I'm going to use words in a row that are going to trigger some people who think I'm anti-bike. I was riding my bike the other day on a bike lane, on a bike path along Kitts Beach, and I know. It was great. I was riding down to English Bay to meet up with my old friend Bill Courage. We were going to watch the sunset together at English Bay Beach. And so I'm riding down there and I was going by Kitts Pool, and the tree on the rock, that plum tree that curves over the rock, it has a little sign on it because everything's got a bloody sign on it in this town. It makes me crazy. Don't hang off the tree. Anyways, I drive by in the tree.
The sign, this is art. The sign that says this is art. It's like, what, the sign or the art? Which is art? The sign? Anyways, thank you for telling me that this is art.
The tree's knocked over.
The tree, yeah. Okay.
The tree's knocked over. And I love that tree. I love spring. I love cherry blossoms. I love plum blossoms. That's the first tree to bloom in the vicinity, let's say, in where we move around in the downtown core. It is like the one that comes up before, and then all the other trees, it's a plum tree, so it comes out early. So it's interesting because a neighbor of mine, we argue over whose tree it is because it's like been an iconic thing in this neighborhood to have that tree on the rock. It's a symbol, right? Mm-hmm. It's a piece of the park. It's like the conservatory for right. Kitts Beach, or the showboat, or the bathhouse at English. It's part of the area. So it's over on its side, and I'm like, and I check in. Okay, where are we at with the tree? And I tweet about it, whatever. And people come at me, but there are homeless people. I'm like, I'm allowed to tweet about different subjects. Holy moly! Stop policing my Twitter feed. Take a step off. If you don't like what I'm talking about, right over there, another person on Twitter, millions of people on. Anyways, I digress. But then I go back down there days later as I'm heading down to English Bay to watch the Celebration of Light. I went to Shachi Curl's house of Angus Reid Institute. I watched from her patio. Lovely. I know you and Amanda were down there as well. Great times. Good that Vancouver is that back reinvigorated vibe. But I go by and that tree knocked over. Still, I'm like, how can we put fencing around some things and we don't even just pick up the damn tree, prop it up or protect it some way, put a little, something. Nothing. Where's the park board? Where is it?
Well, we can get rid of the park board. Oh no. Oh,
No, we can't.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I just feel like this election is going to be one of those nail biters. I think
Yeah.
we're going to see. But unless things
You
get
sure
more
you won't
exciting,
run? You sure you won't run? No?
run away. I'll run away.
Run
I
away.
already ran away. Nope.
If somebody shared this, if you're super entertained right now and somebody shared this with you, unspunpodcast.com is where you subscribe to the podcast. We'll just send it to you. We don't sell your information or anything. It's just we're sharing the local unspun views. And this was a super hyper Vancouver local thing. And let's end it on a high note, George, with regard to Celebration of Light. Like, how was it for you? Were you down in one of those suites that I was tweeting about? Why can't we have these everywhere?
Amanda, as a gift, bought us tickets to this nice little suites they have along English Bay. So we got a view just straight ahead, which is great. It was amazing. It was Canada last night. We saw Japan the other night. We walked down there. We live like a couple blocks from there, so you can just head out the door and be there in 10 minutes. But last night was crazy. It was good. It was so good. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat. It was so good. And if you saw it from the angle of the pirate ship versus the spaceship on the boat, and they were fighting, it was like it's all fireworks. It's crazy. I'm not even a fireworks fan. I'm like, but the music was good. It was like, oh, this is my. Are you playing my playlist?
It's yacht rock. Totally.
You guys get access to my phone.
Yeah, it was like YMCA and some.
Oh yeah, they had the YMCA fireworks. Could you see that from your angle?
I couldn't.
The fireworks. They actually spelled YMCA with fireworks from the barge. So speaking of the barge, cool. The other barge BS is finally getting dismantled. Good riddance to that piece of junk. Get it off my beach. No
kidding. I am with you on that. People are like, let's keep it. No, it's junk.
And it's horrible if you walk down there and it's like, what is this? Taking up all this beautiful view of the ocean.
Let's not. Hey, get us on Twitter, George_Affleck at Jody Vance. That's it for this week. Let's all go cool off. Cheers. Drink your water. I got my San Pellegrino.
Cheerio then.
Off you go now.
Bye.
Bye.